Okay, so we're going to talk about disruption.
Be fruitful, multiply, replenish, subdue. That one's a little odd because subdue literally means to trample, to stomp, to step on, to tread. Well, if you're telling me to build something up and multiply and fill something up and multiply, why are you telling me to trample? Because God is introducing us to the principle of entropy. What is that? Disruption always follows intention. Creation is created by intention, and disruption always follows intention. The mistake most people make is when disruption follows their intention, they make the mistake of assuming that they're going in the wrong direction, when it's actually more often a sign that you're going in the right direction.
Well, what is disruption to you?
Growth, change, anything, you cannot leave the ground comfortable if you put a seed in it. The seed, the rooting process will disrupt the ground. And anybody who wants you to stay the same, they're asking you not to grow. If you're going to grow, you're going to disrupt some things in order to develop to the full capacity of you. And here's the other thing that I think is important. The only person that I'm in a race with is me.
So as you saw those two videos, you saw those two men of God that were speaking a little bit earlier, and disruption, the way they both spoke about it, was us. Anytime we want to become who God's created us to be, it's going to create some disruption. So anytime we move toward becoming the man, the woman that God's called us to be, it's going to create some disruption. And what disruption am I talking about? Well, it's going to create disruption with you, right? Because there's going to be, in order to accomplish the things, like as we talk about, whether it be spiritually, whether it be financially, whether it be physically, like all of those things, when we're going to the next level, to be able to perform at our highest level, to serve at our highest level, it's going to create disruption. It's not going to be comfortable in the beginning, right? So like for anything, like, imagine if when you're looking to lose some weight, like when you first get saved, when you start fasting, like any of those things that you choose to do, when you first start it, doesn't feel good. Your body is rejecting it. Like like things are coming at you. It's creating personal disruption, right? And then as you just press through it, right, as the word of God says, what? When you've done everything to stand, just stand, right? And so as you press through it, then after a few days or whatever, the pain, the discomfort, it begins to ease, and then you're able to continue to grow, right? To be that person that serves at the highest level. Now that's one form of disruption. The other type of disruption is disruption with the people around you. That's going to create disruption with the people around you, because what does most people call us when we looking to do things, especially financially, right? Like for me, like one big thing for me, and maybe this is the same thing for you, like building generational wealth for our families, changing those generational cycles, building that legacy, right? Like that's not something that anyone in my family has ever been able to do. And by the grace of God, like today I fly around on private jets. Today I'm, on yachts with my students and with my family. It's awesome. But even more awesome is all my kids are financially independent. I've been able to also not only do that for them, they're all between the ages of mid 20s to early 30s. So they all are financially independent. But also my students, me and my students from all over the world, the same thing. Like they've been able to change their life, build family financial freedom, and help their kids as well become financially independent, right? Using the methods that I've used with AIRBNB passive income. So So, but I can tell you, and maybe some of y'all can relate. When I first started 30 years ago, 30 some odd years ago, on my real estate journey, everybody used to call me what? Crazy. Like, so that's a disruption. Like, y'all probably experience it now. Like, there's been many times, whether it was when I was in the military and I was, you know, an officer in the military. I was one of the only officers that looked like me in the room. So it ain't a, you know, and that's a little bit of disruption, right? I when I was in banking, I became a bank vice president, commercial lending millions of dollars. And I was one of the only people in that room that looked like me. And oh, and by the way, just so y'all know, y'all may not know this, but I didn't even finish my bachelor's degree. I had to leave school early because my mom, when I was in college, my fourth year as a super senior, my fourth year, she called and said she was dying. So when she called and told me she was dying, me being the oldest sibling, I had to make some moves real quick because now I had to take care of my younger siblings in the event mom was to die. And so leaving school, I never went back, I never finished, but I pursued my real estate journey at that point, right? But because I never went back, as I was still in the military, I went in the military, and then I went into banking as well. Like, those jobs that I had, none of my colleagues had less than an MBA, but I was able to get in those positions without even having a degree. So, but when I pursued those things, it created disruption. Why? Because everyone was saying, "What? You crazy? They ain't gonna let you in. You ain't gonna do this, right? You ain't gonna be able to do this. I can't even believe you even trying." Right? So you may be able to relate where you're the only one in the room that looks like you, that has that type of background, that's been on that walk, but you've accomplished those things. But people are, you know, or you may not have accomplished them yet, and that's when people are calling you crazy. Because typically that's what happens. Like, you saw Mron Golden, you saw T.D. Jakes in there. There's been many people when on their journey who've called them crazy, right? Because they were what? They were the first ones. They were the disruptors, and that's typically what happens. Like, in the beginning, they call us crazy. They call you crazy, right? But then after you've accomplished those things, what do they call you? They call you driven and brilliant and a genius and, you know, and committed, right? Right? Persistent. All those other words to describe you. Oh, and by the way, they also call you rich, right? So all those other things that all those things that they could have been calling you then, they didn't. They choose to call you crazy. Why? Because there's that disruption. And so disruptive conversations, we can't be afraid to have those disruptive conversations. Why? Because it's a part of the growth, right? You can't grow a seed. My brother Myron, what I've heard him say many times is that any fool can count the number of apples on a tree, but only God can count the number of apples in a seed. In order for a seed to become an apple tree, it has to what? Cease to being a seed, right? In order for a tree to be in order for an apple tree to give apples, to bear apples, it has to what? It has to be an apple tree. Just be a tree, right? So he said those things, and it's so profound because it's true, right? He said that in those videos. It's so true, right? What does that mean for us? What that means for you and me is God's created us. He's put his seed in us, this seed of desire for financial independence and freedom for our families. He's put the seed of desire to be able to serve at our highest levels. He's put that seed of desire in us. And we don't have to try. Right? We don't have to try. He told us in Genesis what? He said, what did he say in Genesis? He said, be fruitful and multiply, right? Fill the earth and subdue it, right? Myron shared, and have dominion over everything. that he's created here. And so as he's told us that, we don't have to try. We just have to be. And so I want to encourage you, right? Don't be afraid to have those disruptive conversations, but don't just be having those disruptive conversations with anyone, because most people won't get you. Be very mindful of who you're having them with. Have them with yourself and have them with him. When you have them with him, he ain't gonna put this desire in your heart and not give you the capability of completing that thing. He's gonna give you all the resources that you need. You just have to trust him. That's why he says what? Without faith, it's impossible to please him. Why? Because his logic, just like his peace, it surpasses all understanding. And that's why he tells us, trust not in our own understanding, lean not in our own understanding, but acknowledge him in all of our ways, and he shall direct our path. So trust God with all of our hearts and lean not on our own understanding. And so I want to encourage you with that. And hopefully this was helpful. If it was, one of the things I want you to do is subscribe to the channel. If it was helpful, also join us. I spend once or twice a month, I spend 4 days live just hanging out and mapping out and going through my family financial freedom playbook with others that are committed to creating financial freedom, generational wealth for their families, changing generational cycles and building legacy. And if that's you, join us on our 4-day challenge where I'll spend that time live for you. You'll find that the link to the challenge somewhere in the comments or somewhere in the description or in my or somewhere in my bio. But go ahead and join us and we'll be able to spend that time and I'll tell you, if you do, because it's not a workshop, it's not a webinar, but if you do spend that time, I guarantee you that it'll be the best 4 days, 8 hours that you've ever spent. It'll be life-changing. So God bless you, and I'll see you soon.